2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hope you guys have been having a great week. Settle yourselves in, because we have a very interesting Lightforge ahead.
It is Friday right now. The news came out, huge news yesterday, and we'll go into that in a bit, but we're doing this on a Friday, not because of the huge news, but because I'm going to Mexico for a week after this, so I won't be here on Sunday. And so this Lightforge will probably be released like Saturday sometime. So yeah, if you're wondering why the Lightforge is early, that's why. Our next Lightforge will be at the normal time, because that's when I get back. And yeah, if you're wondering where I'm going in Mexico, it is somewhere between Tulum and Playa del Carmen to a nice resort. And then we're gonna make our way to Merida, eventually to see an actual city in Mexico or something.
Sounds pretty fun.
It's gonna be warm. New York is cold. This Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula is warm. That's really the main goal here. Is so
that was the only box that needed to be checked for this.
Like my seasonal depression is so bad. I literally did not make it to work within a half hour of being on time the entire week. I also just came back from like almost dying of hives. So there's like a mix of all this stuff going, but like that's how much it screws with like my energy levels and my sleep and all of that. So fortunately it's been a chill week. So it's not like they're firing me or anything, but that's how bad it is. This is like, I probably should have gone on vacation this past week, not the next week. Make a note in my little notepad on my computer for next year.
Yep.
But yeah, big news. What happened?
All right. So as you guys know, we have been in the Year of the Raven for quite a while, and essentially Blizzard came out with a huge long post that says, "Say goodbye to Year of the Raven. Say hello to Year of the Dragon." And here is everything that is going to happen in the Year of the Dragon. So number one, Hall of Fame. This is very much expected. Every single year, whenever we shift to a new year, cards get put into the Hall of Fame, so they come out of Standard and come out of Arena. This year, we welcome to the Hall of Fame, or I guess we say goodbye to Naturalised, which is a Druid 1-mana spell. Destroy a minion, your opponent draws 2 cards. We say goodbye to Doomguard, which is a rare demon for Warlocks, 5-mana, 5/7 with charge and Battlecry, discard 2 random cards. And we say goodbye to Divine Favor for Paladins, which is a 3-mana rare spell. Draw cards until you have as many in your hand as your opponent. So these are gone. Also, Baku, Gen, and the odd even cards are out, but this is an arena.
No.
I know. This is an arena podcast, so that those don't matter.
It's like the most important thing that happened in this update does not matter.
So number 2, we're just going to list these first. They're giving us more single player content that you can buy with money or coins. And the most important aspect of the update for Arena, in the Year of the Dragon, they are going to be updating the Arena draft pool by rotating out sets and adding new ones twice every expansion, because they want to keep things fresh. And with the first rotation, the Arena draft pool will contain the following sets: Basic set, Classic set, Curse of Naxxramas. Nax is out, guys. Whispers of the Old Gods, Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, Witchwood, and the first expansion that is going to come out, whatever it is. So once again, you have your basic classic cards: Nax, Whispers of the Old Gods, Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, Witchwood, and the first expansion. So it's a brand new game. What you thought, or what you got used to, and what you thought you were going to get, that's no longer
gone. Arena is no longer Standard, guys. All that whole Arena became Standard thing that happened 2 years ago, experiment failed. We are now into the next level of Arena-ness. Completely divorced from Standard constructed. Arena is in its own universe now with what will be at a minimum of 6 metas every year. Probably more than that, because they're probably going to continue doing like bucket updates or whatever. Possibly nerfs to just like cards in general if they mess up again. But at least 6 metas a year. And Okay, we could talk about. Well, I mean, we're going to talk about all of this going in. My first, like, just general question, and I don't know if anyone answered this, is, and I don't know if they can answer it, is does that mean we don't get arena events anymore? Not like a good or
We
bad
don't
thing.
know. Yeah.
Because if you're gonna keep shaking up the meta, you should like have some time to spend in the meta. But then an event kind of like cuts into that, right? Like it's interesting. Like this may actually be the end of arena events.
It may be. I would not particularly mind it. Like you said, if we're going to just have 2 month metas, and I don't think there'll be perfect 2 month metas as well. Sometimes it'll be like a month and 2 to 3 weeks, right? Depending on like when the expansions come out and whatever. When you cut that with, let's say, a 3 week event,
yeah,
it really just messes things up,
and
right?
especially
And
if an event is like mixed hero powers with like other class cards. It's like what just for these particular sets? Like why?
Yeah, I don't know. So that will, we will see. We will see about that. Like there is no set answer for now,
Okay.
but we do know that those are the sets that are going to be in the arena, and also we do know what cards are going to be disappearing as well. Do you want to like knock out the Hall of Fame cards?
Yeah,
first?
let's do the Hall of Fame first. That's like a separate discussion, and then we could talk about this new arena format.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so look, we are going to take out the Baku and Gen cards, but I will say from everything that I have seen, in terms of your average constructor player and the pros, they are very much for this because the argument I've seen is that Baku and Gen are just not only too powerful, too meta defining. It's like it makes the games too similar as well because it gives the games too much consistency, right? What in terms of like you always hero power on a certain turn.
What I like about Baku and Gen is that when they came out, everyone, I do mean everyone, I mean everyone, every professional player, every single like Blizzard person, all of Reddit, everyone was like, these are the best designed cards ever. Oh my god, Blizzard, way to hit it out of the park. Everything is so wonderful. And look where we are now. Almost unanimously, everybody is like, these are the most terribly designed cards ever. How could you ever possibly do that, Blizzard? I just like the like complete 180 everybody made on these cards. When they first came out, I was like, these are silly, stupid, bad design cards, but like, it doesn't affect arena, so I'm not gonna like rant about it or anything. But I've always been like throughout the year, I've been quietly happy that everyone's come around to like my initial views on these cards. But at this point, it is correct, right? Like they've hit the point in which whatever good effects they used to have, their bad effects are becoming more and more like obvious, and it's affecting people more and more. So
yeah,
definitely good choice.
And it definitely is a good choice. And I would say beyond how powerful they are, I do agree with just watching tournaments as well. When you see odd and even decks, I'm just like, yeah, all the turns look like every single game that you face against an odd paladin, I'm just like, yeah, it does look exactly the same because on
odd
every
paladin's entire card pool is like 200 cards. Sorry, Paladin's entire card pool is like 200 cards. Odd Paladin's card pool is like 100 cards. Like, most of them aren't going to do what they wanted to do, so... Like,
when you just have the hero power it's like on turn 2, you're going to hero power. On turn 3, it's going to be 1-drop and a hero power a lot of times. So it just adds a lot of boring consistency, right? Anyways, that's that. That's two arena people just sort of pontificating about constructed. Let's move on to the cards that actually matter. First, we have Naturalized. So whenever we start a discussion of a card, I'll say what Blizzard had said about this card. So to sum it up, Blizzard is saying the reason we're not removing Naturalized is because Druids have always had good flexibility and ways to use that flexibility, but they have struggled to remove a large minion, and that's something that we have identified as a weakness, and we want to have as a weakness.
Really?
So we're taking
Blizzard finally realized Druid's class identity?
It's insane. Like, so big picture, I love these Hall of Fame choices because I do believe that all 3 of these are good for solidifying a class identity.
And that's why they're done for, right? Because they already removed the super OP cards, like in the first Hall of Fame. They're not doing that stuff anymore. This is like definitely the we realized that when we were designing these in the beginning, we were a little loose about some of the stuff we put into basic and classic, and now we're gonna tighten it up because it's been like 5 years and we kind of more know what we should have been doing in the first place. So that's good. And if you're wondering why like Naturalized particularly was targeted beyond what Blizzard said, like, you know how it is in Arena. You know that you draft Naturalize, and you know that you draft Naturalize because you can't hard remove without Naturalize. So it doesn't even matter what the penalties for Naturalize is. If you're playing this kind of mid-range game or a fast game, or really just any kind of game, you want Naturalize because it does one thing that the rest of your cards can't possibly do. I will point out that Blizzard had printed another card for Druid that was a hard removal pretty early on. It was Recycle. I forget which set Recycle was in.
They also had Mulch as well. But as you can see, these are cards that they had it and then they're like, no, not again.
But you know what's going to happen? Arena's going to continue having these cards. These cards that were terrible designs that Blizzard has already Hall of Famed. And will not be a problem for Constructed. Arena's going to have them. I guess Wild will also have them.
Well, they didn't Hall of Fame. They rotated out.
Right, they rotated out. But that's what I mean. Blizzard did not Hall of Fame them. Blizzard Hall of Fame the idea, and specifically said Druid should not be doing this. But guess what Druids are going to be doing in Wild and in Arena? They're going to be doing this. Yeah. So just one difference between Arena and Standard play that's going to become more of the common theme than the exception to the rule. But yeah, Naturalized gone, very good decision, and we love Naturalized as a card, and we don't think it's overpowered exactly in the way of, like, I don't know, Defile being a overpowered card by itself. It does have a downside, but at the same time, just it did not fit into Druid. It's better that it's gone.
Yep. So, same thing for Doomguard. The reason that Blizzard decided to Hall of Fame Doomguard was they identified Warlocks as a good board control class. Those are their words. A powerful board control class, but they like that Warlocks need to deal with minions. They don't like the fact that Doomguard gives them just burst from the hand, right? And with the number of combos these days, a lot of burst. So much burst. So they're getting rid of Doomguard and telling Warlocks, hey, get on the board, fight on the board. We don't want you to just randomly generate like 20 damage out of nowhere from Doomguards.
Yeah. I'm kind of weirded out by that. Like, I don't know exactly why they went this way, but Doomguard seemed to me like a candidate to be turned into Rush instead of Charge. Because you look at Warlock cards right now, they do still have the Rush mechanic with the rat thing or whatever that eats your own card and then has Rush. Like, Rush is a mechanic that Warlocks have. It doesn't violate any of their principles that they stated if they made Doomguard into Rush. And it would preserve a large demon, which, depending on the set you're looking at, they sometimes have trouble with having enough of. Like, just look at Bane of Doom right now, right? Like, Bane of Doom is crap right now. Why? Because there's too many small demons, not enough large demons. Because their pool has been skewed based on how they initially balanced the card. So it's weird to me that they're just straight up Hall of Faming it instead of nerfing it like they did with some of the other cards, like, say, like Wild Growth, right? Like, they weren't going to Hall of Fame Wild Growth because it's central to the Druid's identity. They were just going to nerf it.
Yeah, that is interesting. Who knows? So third, we have Divine Favor. And same concept that Blizzard stated. They like Paladin's identity as a snowball minion buffing class, but they don't like the fact that on top of that, they have this super draw, right? Mm-hmm. So they believe that Paladins should have good minion generation. They should have good buffs to go with the minion generation, but they don't also believe that it should be backed up by card draw. And I think that's very valid.
I don't know. I think all classes should be able to have card draw. And the problem with Divine Favor isn't that Paladins shouldn't be backed up by card draw. Paladins still have card draw. Like, they have Lay on Hands. They have Blessing of Wisdom.
No, they have
don't
that.
really have, like, the most trouble with card draw. They're not like Shaman here. And they're not supposed to be like Shaman in terms of how poorly they deal with card draw. The problem really was that Divine Favor was kind of a busted card that cost too little mana and in the right deck drew too many cards.
Right. And I never said that like paladins should not have card draw. It's aggressive paladins should not have access to like such a good card draw, essentially.
Right.
And they
Well,
specifically like talk about aggressive paladin decks.
hmm I mean, it was a card that was designed in a way that could not be balanced. Like that was the fundamental problem with that card. Um, I mean, that's not even true. It could be balanced. They just didn't want that to happen. So, what does it mean in Arena? This was never a great card in Arena. It just swung the game too much. Although Blizzard seems to not care about swinging the game when it comes to card draw. Like, if you notice, Blizzard pumps out a lot of really overpowered cards that are just about card draw. With the idea that, well, if you're drawing the cards, you still have to play it. There's counterplay, right? Like, anything that draws cards immediately like allows counterplay, not to counter the card draw, but rather to counter the playing of the cards by like ending the game before the cards can get played, for example. So Blizzard seems very comfortable with that. You see it a lot in Ticket Scalper, which is just like an overpowered card, but it's overpowered in the sense of potential card draw. And so the swinginess and the randomness and the power just doesn't seem to like bother Blizzard. So I don't know why they drew the line here. It's probably a more advanced design decision on what future aggressive cards and paladins could look like.
Yep. So those are the cards. I think they're very fair, very cool. Definitely makes sense in terms of their theme of class identity.
Yeah. So that's Hall of Fame. Now let's talk about what we're really here to talk about, because let's be honest, no one's gonna miss any of these cards that are gone. Divine Favor
Not
was
really.
barely in like the game because it was so like lowly bucketed. Naturalized, people didn't really like playing it. Like, I don't know anyone who really loved playing Naturalized. It was more like you had to play it if you like cared about winning. And then a lot of people still avoided it just because it feels so bad to give your opponent 2 cards. And I mean, Doomguard, I'm sure maybe some people have connections to, but again, like, you're discarding 2 cards, and you don't often get to play it in Arena for no cost, right? For not having the discard cost. So it was always a card I didn't really like having in my deck I'm playing, but I recognize how powerful it is. So these are really great choices, right? If you were to pick 3 cards, like, I think Blizzard got this right. Just both in terms of feel and balance and flavor and just everything.
Okay. Let's talk about the new arena experience.
New arena experience. So, what do you want to talk about in the new arena experience? It's we'll do this, right? We'll just talk about it overall, and then we'll delve into some of the sets. We're not going to go like card by card in any of these new sets. Any of these old sets, because it's like going to be like 500 cards, and we'll really go into the meta and how the new meta will reconstruct itself in later podcasts. We do have like more than an entire month before the new expansion and the rotation of the new expansion comes out, so we got plenty of time. But yeah, like, we thought it would take us 5 episodes to do the rotation. Now with this change, it's gonna take, I don't know if we actually are gonna have enough time on the Lightforge, even in the month, to fully delve into everything. But anyway, today we're just gonna go over some big picture stuff, some like cards that are coming back, you know, some of the interesting stuff, and how this whole new like set rotation is going to impact all sorts of stuff. So why don't you kick it off? Your first impression of new sets, rotation, no more standard.
I mean, my first impression is we are bucking a trend now. And this is a trend that we talked about on the previous Lightforges in terms of whenever we look at future sets, right? I'm just like, man, I don't know if we're going to ever get like powerful 1-drops or 2-drops ever again, right? You're going to get situational ones. You're going to get like Arcanologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like really good and powerful, but not powerful because of its stats or a battle cry or something. And I'm like, you know, I can't really imagine them really printing powerful cards. Like Headhunter's Hatchet it felt like an exception, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to get something that good in the early game. But now with something like this, the arena that you liked or hated, if you didn't like it back then, is back. So they don't need to actually print strong early game now in these new sets because they can just grab it from Naxxramas, right? Naxxramas, and you're able to get the zombie chow. You're able to get the haunted creepers. You know, if you want like early game that makes a difference in terms of heal as well, then well, Mean Streets of Gadgetzan has Mistress of Mixtures, which was like a huge part of the meta game. It has Friendly Bartender, so it's got all of this early game, and it's such a unique way of introducing early game, but you don't have to print it, right? So it changes Arena back into something that I think is going to be more enjoyable in terms of now there is legit early game, uh, and at like meanwhile they do not have to print any early game anymore. Like if they don't want to, they just want Hearthstone to keep on going in this direction of like okay, polarized stats. They want like no matter what, they want the game to kind of extend into the later turns, which seems to be a fundamental philosophy. They can keep doing that, but all they have to do is like bring back Naxxramas and bring back GVG every once in a while, and suddenly aggro is very viable, and you know you have to account for all of these early game minions now. So that is the most interesting part for me.
Okay, I didn't have that thought at all because aggro is pretty viable now, and
It is viable,
deep,
but
deep into the era of no 1 or 2 drops.
Here's the thing though, aggro is viable, but it's the aggro of now, right? It's all relative. So Hunter, I would say, like my Hunter especially, like that is true aggro.
Yeah.
But then all of it's like aggro Rogue nowadays. Like if Rogue of 2 years ago saw quote aggro Rogue now, like Valir would just be like, wow, I have fallen hard. Like this is not what aggro is, and it's true, it's not, right? So there will always be aggro in the sense that there always has to be aggro. Some deck will be an aggro deck, but if we're looking at true aggro, we are definitely going to be able to go back to that for a lot of classes that are other than Hunter.
Yeah. Okay. So that is definitely an effect of bringing early sets back, right? You go back a little bit, you start mixing the metas. My first thought when I saw the rotation, the set rotations, now they're going to start mix and matching sets. My first thought is that well, competitive arena is now dead because the whole point of competitive is standard. We went to standard because it sets the standard so that someone can come in and balance standard. They have a set of stuff that can be balanced. That's like why standard exists. That's why standard exists in pretty much all the card games. It's a pretty simple balancing philosophy, and no one has successfully broken it and had a balanced game. So, Arena moving 100%. This isn't even like, oh, we're going to be standard for like the first 2 months, and then the next 2 months we're going to do something crazy, like the way events happen, right? Or we're going to be crazy in the first 2 months and then go back to standard for the last 2 months. This is like never standard. Or like maybe there will be a 2-month standard once in a while where like the sets that they just have in the game just happens to be the sets in standard, right? That can happen. But for the most part, it's not a goal or a side goal or anything on the table anymore. There's just like Arena is somewhere between Brawl and Constructed, like maybe right in the middle. It's gonna they're trying to make it fun, make it interesting. They're not gonna have enough time to balance anything, and the sets themselves just don't lend itself to balancing because that's not how they were created. No thought went into it when they were designing the cards to do anything like this, and this whole entire feat has not been done in a super balanced way by any card game that I've known. So I've been saying for the last 6 months that this game in the arena is in its most balanced state, is in its best state, and it keeps getting better a little bit by a little bit. And I was very excited. If you listen to the last Lightforge, I was incredibly excited by what that would mean for the next set once the three of the 4 worst offending like balance-wise sets rotate out, right? So if the new set, like this whole last year, Blizzard's been like very good about printing like 98% of their cards were somewhere on their spectrum of balance. It wouldn't break their own rules.
Really non-offensive.
Non-offensive cards. And like people actually constructed were like, what are you doing? We can't use these cards. But in Arena, it's been great. And the next set, if they followed the same philosophy, would have given us by far the most balanced, the most skillful, just in my opinion, the best arena that we had ever seen by such a mile, like by so much distance. And we're just not going to get that anymore, not even for a little bit, and possibly never again, depending on, because it's a philosophy, right? Like they're not going to just start doing this and then like go back on it in a few months. So at least for the next little while, at least for the next year or so, we have officially been relegated into. I mean, Arena's always been like the B or C team of Hearthstone when it comes to taking things at all seriously. But now we're not even. There's no chance for them to accidentally stumble upon some kind of balance, or for any of their balancing team to do work to actually make it
So
a competitive
let me ask
format.
you a question there.
So we're in a new world of Arena, where this is not to say it's not like people can make anything competitive, right? Like there's still like good players are still going to win much more than bad players. You can still have arena tournaments, like all this stuff can still happen. They may even be more interesting to people who like care more about swings and exciting stuff. I don't even know if it's going to be more exciting, at least not after the novelty wears off, but it might be. But when it comes to like your skill impact on the game, this, I don't know if it definitely lowers it. I don't know the degree to which it lowers it. You know how like the bucket system increased drafting skill in the arena?
Right.
This, like, at least the top level drafting skill, it may have decreased drafting skill required for a baseline, right? Like it'll raise the floor a lot. So like if you have no idea what you're doing in the arena, you were going to have a better deck. But also, if you had a ton of arena knowledge and how to draft a deck and and deck building skills, you're gonna end up differentiating yourself from like the like 0.1% of the people below you. This is gonna undo a lot of that, not in the direct way, but just in the overall like how much the skill impact the arena thing, and it's gonna do that not necessarily through drafting.
I gotta stop you right there because you're talking about something different. No. Okay, so about your competitiveness statement, right? Like, so what I don't understand is essentially how can competitive arena be dead if it was kind of just never alive?
That's fair. Right? I mean, it was stuff was happening. The game itself was becoming more like skill based in arena. The metas were moving there, and that's why I was really excited about the next set. Right, it was all going to come together.
So
I'm not saying competitive arena is dead.
With skill.
I'm not. Well, yeah, that's what I mean when I say competitive. I mean skill has an impact. I don't mean like esports.
Sure. Okay.
I mean like, but people.
I think a lot of people think, okay, then you should use skill, because competitiveness, I think a lot of people will equate to like esport.
No,
sportiness.
Competitive in a game just means you take it seriously and you care about winning, like more than other things. That's what competitive means.
Okay.
Like literally, that's the definition of competitive gaming.
Well, no. That is the definition of competitive gaming. But like, I think you understand how some people would think that you're talking about like competition in terms of the esport potential of something. So good to establish that. But really, like, because I'm looking at all of these different different sets, and I think an argument could be made that you're just skill testing something else instead.
Oh yeah, sure. You're skill testing something else, but that something else is not the deep level strategic skill that I consider more important. That something else is like a lot of random memorization. Like I keep saying, right? Like there's different things the game skill tests. Like you could test for reading, you can test for adding, and Hearthstone tests for both of them. But if you want the game to be about reading and adding and memorizing, then we're not playing the same game. And when a game is well designed as a strategic game, I play Hearthstone as a strategy game. I don't play it as I don't know, dice roll game. I don't play it as a pretty pictures game. I don't play it as a memorization game or a math game. Like that's not how I approach the game. And I think that's why I get the results I get, is because despite not giving a crap about math or positioning or reading or knowing stuff, I do quite well. Why? Because I got the deep strategy of the game down. I know the physics of the game, how it's constructed. I know what my opponents are doing, what I am doing, and I am able to play a game at a deep strategic level. I think that's what most players who take the game seriously aspire to, in terms of which skill you think they think they want to pick up more of. I don't think they want to like memorize more information. That's not like if I'm asking you, how do I make the game better? No one's going to come back and be like, make me memorize more information to succeed at this game. And the degree to which I have memorized said information should reflect upon my win rate. I don't know how, like, you could be very competitive at the game, but I don't think anyone, like, has that in any of their, like, top 10 responses of, like, how they want to make a game deeper or to make a game more strategic or more skill-based. Is it a skill? Yes. Memorization is a skill. Yes. Math is a skill. Yes. Reading is a skill. But when you're designing a game, you're trying to design around those necessities, not towards those. I have this disagreement with people all the time about like math heavy stuff, right? We talked about it in the context of mass hysteria. Defile's another good one. Like, is it a well designed card? Well, that depends on how much you think the negative of having to do all that math is on the design element of the card. If you think it's like whatever, then they're great cards. They open up so much like possibilities and stuff. But if you think it's a serious downer to have to do a lot of math, then you don't think they're a very well designed card. And when it comes to here, this is about the design of the arena. What Blizzard's doing is it's increasing the amount of randomness, the amount of swings, and the amount of all the stuff in the game that is a negative on deep strategic skill. All of those, because prior sets are worse about these things. And we'll get to MSG later, but MSG is especially bad. So prior sets are worse about these. They turn the game into RNG fest. They turn the game into rock paper scissors fest, where your deck going into the opponent's deck will determine whether you win or not anything that happens in the game. And Blizzard's fixed a lot of that as they've like gotten better about creating more interesting sets and balancing them and stuff like that. And it's all not going to be seen in the arena because arena's going to change. So I see people in the chat and they're like, but wouldn't adjusting to the new meta be a skill? Yeah. How many new metas did we have in the last expansion, in the last 2 expansions? When Blizzard was barely touching the arena. How many different metas did we have? Was it 4, which is the amount of meta that Blizzard's going to give you in the future for 2 expansions? Or was it more than 4? If you think there's been 4 metas in the last 2 sets, you're wrong, and then yeah, sure, you may find this more interesting and more like whatever. If you think there's been more than 4 metas in the past 2 expansions, which I think there's been like at least 8, then you would know that this is not an issue. This was never an issue. Blizzard has just changed it from actually figuring out how a meta changes to having to memorize a bunch of new cards and what cards are in and what cards are out. So they've shifted the skill from something that's sort of memorization, but also a lot of like feel, a lot of analysis, like somewhat deeper. I wouldn't say it's the most deep skill to figure out a meta, but it's definitely a deeper skill. And they've shifted it so that a whole bunch of that skill now becomes memorizing which cards are in and which cards are out.
It's a similar argument to the one, the argument that you're making right now. It's a similar one that Blizzard itself was making as to why they didn't have like a rotating core set, right? Mm-hmm. Because they believe that it is important for players to have something to come back to. Yeah. There's a comfort level and a skill to it as well. Yeah,
and that's a great point because I didn't even connect it to something Blizzard said itself. But this is just one more way Blizzard is treating Arena different than Constructed in a way that is just blatantly flag waving. Like, do not get comfortable here. This is not serious. Both in the same swoop, right? You can't get comfortable anymore because we're going to keep changing things on you. And you shouldn't take it as seriously anymore because we're literally lowering the skill ceiling.
All right. So, I think we all understand ADWCTA's grumpiness about this. I will say, overall,
my grumpiness hasn't even started. This was my nice. I know this is the nice things I have to say about the new rotation system because it will be new rotation system. There will be new metas. Like for people who like lower level skills, this is going to be interesting, and even for people like higher level skills, it's going to be interesting because we're going to have to keep adapting to like insanely like new metas. Like I get it. There's some positives that come out of it. Like I see what Blizzard's doing. I don't like what Blizzard's doing because I also see beyond their flashy neon signs and advertising and like, you know, like it's like if they're feeding you sugar, you're like, oh, I like sugar. But you should also think, wait, well, hold on. What if I get diabetes? Now, compress that timeline into the timeline of like 1 year, right? And the sugar's not worth it anymore. Like I eat a lot of sugar, but it's worth it because I'm not going to get diabetes for many, 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 many years. This game does not have that like timeline.
Okay, a lot of disagreements with you there, not just about the game, but as for your assessment of your own health. But let me just say this. Okay, look, ADWCTA is grumpy, as you can tell. The general kind of immediate feedback from the community has been a lot of excitement, right?
Oh,
It's a lot of excitement.
that's
And I will say,
underselling it. There
no
has been
matter
insane
stop.
amounts of
No
excitement.
matter what you think about this, whether you are on ADWCTA's side or you are on the public side in terms of excitement level, I will say one thing that this does solve is, even if you look at the popular streamers and you look at some of the people that used to play a ton of Hearthstone arena, for example, Hafu, they either moved on or they're still playing, but they're just like, damn, this is just like, I'm waiting for something different. And I think that's what Blizzard really caught on to. It's like, even your most hardcore, even the people that are the best at this game, it's like they're stuck in a rut waiting, or they have ditched the game. So for them, beyond the balance, beyond all of these considerations, your first thing is like, let's get people back into their seats playing Hearthstone. And this does do it. It creates the excitement. It guarantees that that people will experience different meta. So I do like that, because I think Arena was also in a state beyond sort of all this competitive and all of the stuff. It's just like, dude, if we turn it into a game that no one is enjoying, right, and that people are just slogging through, that is the number one, number two, and number three problem. And I think that's what Blizzard saw. It's like, this is the big elephant in the room that we have to address. And then they addressed it in a very spectacular fashion.
I don't understand people. Why would memorizing more things be an enjoyable thing?
It's new.
But it's just, it's a chore. Like, literally, who likes sitting there memorizing things? Like, you memorize things in order to do things with it that is exciting and whatever.
You know, people still pick up League of Legends and Dota, right?
Oh, I can never understand that. I can never understand the mentality.
You recognize that people still pick up League of Legends and Dota.
I know,
right?
that's a fact. I'm not debating
so
that.
I'm just going to leave that there, because if League of Legends and Dota, the amount of memorization that you have to do for those games, holy cow, man.
Like, this is how much I hate memorizing stuff. I don't play around any cards. I built a freaking algorithm so I wouldn't have to memorize how many beasts are in and what percentage that they're in and whatever. It's because all those things get in the way of the strategy of the game. So they need to be outsourced or limited. But I guess some people are excited by the prospect of having to memorize a whole new set of stuff every 2 months. It's fine. We always have to memorize a somewhat of a new set of stuff every 4 months, right? With the new expansions coming out. This just increases the burden for arena players. But, you know, if it makes everyone else happy, then that part of it at least is a success.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, if you're just listening to this on Lightforge, you're not on Reddit or whatever, you may not like know the public reaction to this. I have never, ever, ever seen arena players more excited about a change happening to the arena. Like, when it went to standard, people weren't that happy. When there were micro adjusts, people weren't this happy. When it went to the bucket systems, there were a lot of reservations. At every single step of the way, no matter what Blizzard was doing to the arena, even if like the vast majority of players supported it, it was not at this ratio. So within the arena community, outside of the arena community, this is a hit. As of the time before people start playing it. And I want to measure this amount of excitement with how excited people are about this. I'm going to say at the end of May.
Okay.
Which is 1.5 months into the new set, into the new expansion. And I want to see how many people at that point who are, you know, arena vets are like, oh, this is still a great idea. Or if they're like, all right, I can see the problems. That this
it all depends on the bucketing, right? It all depends on bucketing. It depends on the implementation. We know of the
Merps.
This is like them
Merps,
putting out
a
blueprint.
The implementation.
Oh, I know. And that is why I am not optimistic, but we haven't seen it yet, right? It's like a guy with a bad history. Let's say an architect comes. He has like 1-star reviews on Yelp, right? And he's like, I'm going to build this building. You're just like, Okay. You don't have a lot of confidence, but you're like, well, you know what? Maybe this will be that one time.
Okay, this is gonna be like if an architect comes not with a 1-star review, but with a history of failing to build a 5-story building, then failing to build a 10-story building, then failing to build a 15-story building, coming in and being like, all right, let's go for a 40-story building. No one would hire him.
They have gotten better recently. They have gotten better recently.
Well, yeah. Now they can build 5-story buildings.
Yes,
when
they're
attempting 20-story buildings. Like,
so look, guys, I have been well, it seems as though, look, I agree with you on all of the balance things, but it seems like you kind of don't even understand why people are enthusiastic, when I totally understand why people are enthusiastic. Because unlike you, people, okay, for you, in order to have fun, it needs to be balanced. In fact, like, they are one of the same, with balance being a predicate to fun.
mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, they need to have fun, period, in order to play a game. Like, in order to game, it has to be fun. So
I don't get it. That's like a tautology. Like, you're putting the fun before the game, but the game is what's giving you the fun. So how could the fun happen before the game? It's almost like you're having
I
fun
don't want you
of
to
what the
short
game
circuit
is.
here. You got to stay with us. We have to finish this podcast. I understand.
Sense.
Ooh, guys. Okay, Cyborg ADWCTA is going to explode. But for some people, they need to fulfill this definition of fun. And you have seen this as well in the community. A lot of people aren't having fun, right? Like, Hafu actually just left. She doesn't play Hearthstone anymore. A lot of people don't play Hearthstone. You've seen the viewer numbers of Hearthstone generally as well.
They also don't play Hearthstone because they released a bunch of underpowered cards that you can't really put in decks, so it's been very unexciting.
True. I'm not saying it's not because
that's a short-term balance fail, presumably in pursuit of long-term balance nirvana, and the payoff is a month away, and they just changed the whole freaking system for Arena, while, I'm going to remind you again, keeping it the same for Constructed, to reap the rewards of the payoff.
So I will say this. Look, I completely understand. And I've explained it to you, and you don't have to understand it, but I've explained it to you. So let that compute.
Can't they just make like prettier colors or something for these people? Like, why have an actual cost on the strategy side? When, like, are people not having fun with pretty? Like, from what I understand, people have fun when things are like flashy and, like, you know, I don't know.
These are still human beings. These aren't cats that you can entertain.
Well, I mean, that's what casinos do, right? Like, casinos have made like a whole study of how to like keep people engaged and like whatever. They spent like billions, trillions of dollars on it.
Right. They have more tools than Blizzard has with a card game as well.
That's true. They can give you
that is really true.
By the way, guys, the best thing to do is to just go to a casino and like play something that you won't lose too much money in or whatever, because they pump happy air into the air, which means you get free happy air. You also get free drinks for playing. You just have to like tip. So you get free alcohol.
And you have to wait a while. Sure. Okay, look.
So you have to like sit there for a while, play a game, and get happy air and get free drinks. Like, it's the best experience that should really cost a lot more than that. And it does cost a lot more than that. The big rollers, they're the ones built, like, you know, supporting you and your free air and your free alcohol. It's great.
Okay, great. That tip was not brought to you by anyone, even though it sounded like it should be. Okay, so here is after saying that, I totally understand people's optimism, and myself, I'm just like, yeah, you know what? Even I'm kind of looking forward to it with a mix of 50% curiosity and 50% like, a part of me wants to see these cards again. Not in terms of balance, I just want to see these again.
Are you looking forward to it as an event, or as this is the next arena for a year?
As an event, and I do agree. I think I will become frustrated eventually.
That's my like big point, is that they've made this whole thing like an event, so people are excited about it like an event. But this is like forever, or like at least for the next year until they find the next new shiny thing. And by they, I mean Blizzard, because every single year they redo how Arena is done. And, you know, eventually it gets better, but for the first like 6 months, it's always trash. Like, they've done this twice now. This is the third time they're doing it.
Let me say this about the thing that I worry about, and I tweeted about this as well. Now, I have no idea how they're going to bucket this, but the bucketing is the thing that worries me the most, because although Blizzard has gotten better at bucketing, they are still not great at it, as we can see from
Mm-hmm.
Demon Bolt, as we see from
Oh
Dragon
my
Ball
God,
Scorcher,
Demon
right?
Bolt.
Demon Bolt, Dragon Ball Scorcher,
Well,
etc.
it's not even that
So
Blizzard's not great about it. Blizzard has like a philosophy to not be great about it because Blizzard's relying on average player pick rates very explicitly.
yes,
So like something like Dragon Ball Scorcher, like people just don't like picking it because it hurts your own stuff too. And so they're just not going to pick it at as high numbers as it deserves to be picked. And so the whole meta when it comes to competitive play is going to be dominated by that card.
right. Your average player dominates what cards you get in your draft. So like, you want that Keening Banshee, you will not get that Keening Banshee because it is in the pit of the 7th bucket. That is why you will almost never see Keening Banshee.
Yeah, so when you're like, oh, is Blizzard gonna, get this balance right? I'm like, I don't care if Chalky is God. Chalky, by the way, is the person that balances Arena now, according to Ixar, who is like the long-term, like, I don't know if he's the head of it or just the spokesperson for it right now, but he's definitely one of the higher ups on the whole balance team these days. And a vet of Team 5 at this point. But like Chalky could be all-knowing and know the future and know perfect balancing. And he will not be able to balance the arena because the goal of Blizzard, very explicitly on how bucketing works, is not balance when it comes to how good cards are. It is balance when it comes to giving average players the choice of what they may want to pick. And those are very, very different things.
Right. I mean, this has always been weird. It was weird when we first learned it, and it's still weird to this day.
So when people are like, oh, it depends on whether Blizzard gets bucketing right. No, it does not depend on whether Blizzard gets bucketing right, because your definition of right is probably the same as my definition of right, but it is not what Blizzard's definition of right is. So Blizzard is not even making an effort to get it quote-unquote right, because they don't think what we all think as quote-unquote right is actually right. They're not trying to make Arena more balanced or more skillful, or like to make Arena like to give to top players the like correct choices for like 3 choices of nearly even cards. They're trying to do that for average players.
What you're talking about matters a lot less, right? Because really it's Blizzard's initial bucketing which will have the most impact, because that like whatever the meta fair. Whatever the meta is, like, I'm talking, like, it's only for 2 months, right? So
but the initial bucketing only happens the first time you see the set again. And this is assuming their initial bucketing isn't done based on data that they had gotten from like past metas when like the card was still in rotation or whatever. Because I don't think Blizzard dumps the data, right? Like it's just sitting somewhere. They can go back and analyze it.
I would assume.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So,
but this is one of those things that I worry about. And also, here's the thing. Here's the analogy that I like when I saw that Blizzard was saying, okay, we are going to make a brand new arena experience with all of these old sets. It's like an enthusiastic guy at work, right? Who is really excited about all of these projects and keeps on asking the manager for like more work, right? Like, more work, please give me more work. And it's awesome to see enthusiasm. It's awesome to see, the drive there. But that is also the guy who, like,
he's going to screw things up. He's going to take something that was working and make it, and, like, make it crap. He may eventually make it better. But trust me, the chance of it being crap for, like, the next, like, year or 9 months or whatever is extremely high. Like, more than 50%, like, more than 75%.
So what I'm hoping is, with further dedication and further taking on of responsibilities, because this is a huge undertaking now, with a 2-month refresh, right? With
so anything you do in that 2 months doesn't really matter for the next 2 months, which means your goal is not to like eventually balance the game. Your goal is to balance the game really, really incredibly quickly so that there is some time that people can actually play a balanced game before you have to do it all over again with a whole different set of cards. Or like a half different set of cards, right?
Yes. So it not only requires more work, it requires a lot more nimbleness and responsiveness as well. So these are things
that Blizzard, the balancing team in the arena, has been known for their nimbleness and their fast response time, and that's.
Once again, I have to note, in December and in January, they were a lot better than they were before, which is like, they were clearing a very low bar, but at the same time, they were a lot more responsive and a lot better.
They were
So,
adequate for a
sure.
4-month long period of a set. If that set was only going to last 2 months, their performance in December and January was by any standard inadequate, because they came out with a patch in 2 weeks. They came out with a a micro adjust in 1 month, and they came out with another patch in 2 weeks after that to update the bucket. So there were 2 bucket updates and 1 micro adjust. That's trash in a 2-month period if that's your entire meta before you change up all the cards again. What that means is you are going to have, and that's assuming they eventually, after those 3 times, get the meta at a place that they could call balance. That means out of a period of 8 weeks, you have 2 weeks of a balanced meta. And that's if they get it right.
Yeah. So look, we've talked a lot about the pros and cons, and especially harped on sort of the cons by Grumpy ADWCTA.
I haven't even gotten into the cons yet. These are my
pros.
I
know you haven't. So I'm going to throw this in there. I don't want to lose sight of that thing I said before, in which I think Blizzard, what this does do, and I know that this was at the heart of all of these changes. Blizzard wants people to have fun with the arena. They want people to like the arena. So they're going into it with good intentions and with ambition, and they're trying to put out a product that gets people really into it, whether you are competitive or casual. And at the end of the day, I do really, really respect that, because they see a game that is problematic in some ways, for many, many ways. And they are swinging for the fences and trying to change that for the better, and making a game mode that people will flock back to, and they're taking on a lot of responsibility. So there are a lot of things I do respect about it, and I just want to make that clear, because we are obviously going to sort of break things down, and ADWCTA is going to keep on sounding negative with a lot of things, but that at the end of the day is something that I respect, because if you remember years ago, a legitimate question was, does Blizzard even care that the arena is slowly dying, right? Because it was slowly dying. Nothing was going on. There was no communication about it. There was nothing in the pipeline. So at the end of the day, which would I prefer? That Blizzard literally does nothing and just actually lets it die as a mode that has no legitimacy and people are bored of, or this, I like this. There are a lot of problems that I see with it already based on their history, and I am not...
And structural problems that they can't possibly resolve.
Definitely. Yes.
This is the same. You bring up the over-enthusiastic, I'm going to call him an intern. The over-enthusiastic intern who wants to go and make the system that you already have that does something, but still does it, and just make it way better because they know that they can do it, right? You don't give that person the job of recreating a critical piece of your system. For an arena player, they've just given this to that guy for the entire system. That's just not responsible if you're I don't know, running a business or whatever, but that's not Blizzard's business again, right? Blizzard's business is not to get the arena balanced. Blizzard's business is to get people to play more. So our interests between what I want to see in the arena and Blizzard's goal and job, and what their investors, what Activision Blizzard's investors want Blizzard to do with Hearthstone or arena or any game mode, are wildly different. And this is a huge step, especially if they don't backtrack it in a few months or whatever, towards the non-seriousness of arena. Whereas before, for many, many, many months, Blizzard had been doing things to make the arena more serious, more predictable, more skill oriented. Hey, do I think they're going to succeed in their mission to get more people to play the arena? Yes, I do. If I were an investor in Blizzard, am I happy? Yes, I would be. But I am not an investor in Blizzard. I am a player of Hearthstone Arena, and I will play Hearthstone Arena through all the crap that they throw at me. And so for that, I'm not happy, because I'm going to be sitting here having to play through the crap for 6 to 9 months out of the year while it is crap. and they're getting their stuff together and like trying to like fix each individual meta towards a position in which it's not just like dice rolling most of the time. And to most of the people who play Arena, it's not going to matter that much. Why? Because they think it's dice rolling anyway. It's a divergence in opinion. And what I am actually really surprised about is that there's now more people who see that. Like, and by people, I don't mean regular people. I mean people who are like Arena vets and other people who take Arena seriously like me. So many of them, the vast majority of them, either don't see this or don't care about this. And that's alarming to me.
Here's the thing, like, I identify and I agree with that sentiment, but it's sort of, I don't know if it's this serious, but it's sort of like caring like that my carpet is dirty when I don't have food. You know what I mean? And that seems like a really sad state of affairs, but I think that's where we were with how Arena was going. Like, just players were starved for any sort of content. Casual players didn't like the fact that, you know, for a lot of cards, you know, the Arena already seemed boring for them, and with this rotation, it was going to be even more boring for them, right? Like what you call balance and consistency, a lot of people call boring. So I think we were facing a situation in which a lot of top players and casual players were already bored, potential to be even more bored. So it's, look, I agree with everything you've said. I do. But I also very much so understand Blizzard's kind of priorities in that we have to feed ourselves before we care about that stain on the carpet in the living room, you know? Which I know marginalizes your issue, which I know is bigger than that, and overstates sort of the bigger issue. But yeah, I think it's just sort of them.
I don't think it's the
having
carpet.
to do something before addressing what you see.
I think it's like a museum exhibit, and your exhibit is like, I don't know, getting damaged, and you're like, yeah, let more people touch the exhibit and damage it more. Why? Well, because that's what people want to do, and so we're gonna get more people in, and that's fine. And I'm like, you could do that. That's what some countries choose to do. We don't usually look very kindly upon those countries. We think they're destroying their historical like legacy. But you know, it's Blizzard's game. That's what they're doing. You do get a lot more money out of it on the short term, maybe even the long term. But it doesn't change the fact that you're destroying the exhibit. Nothing changes that fact. And so you can argue about what's more important, right? Whether you want more people in the door so you can have an exhibit in the first place, right? That's your argument. If you don't get enough people in the door, you don't sell enough tickets, well, there's no more exhibit, right? There's no more funding for this. You don't have a museum at all. Or you can care about the cultural artifact and say, hey, this is what we want to make better. This is the goal. The goal is not the people. The goal is the thing. And that's kind of how I treat a balance in a strategy game, and then especially a multiplayer strategy game. And understandably, Blizzard has a lot of different interests pulling at what they choose to do, and this is how they chose to do things this time around for the foreseeable future. You know, there's like I find it shocking the percent of people who don't see that or don't agree with that. That's all. Like, I know the majority was never going to be on my side, but the sheer percentage is overwhelming. And that's why I want to see how people feel about this at the end of May. And then again at the end of, what would it be? July? Probably July.
Something like that.
And see if they still feel like you know, it's the next best thing since sliced bread for the Arena. All right, enough about big general things. Let's talk about what sets are actually coming in. Let's talk a little about what we're actually going to see, because this is like all theoretical discussion right now, right? Like in a month when the new rotation happens, you're not going to be playing a rotation of all the different past sets. You're going to be playing a few very specific sets. And once again, they are the new set, Witchwood, which exists in current Standard Arena, and will continue to remain in Standard Arena. It is the only set in current Standard Arena, besides your like Classic and Basic cards, that will remain in the Arena, Witchwood. And on top of that, you're going to add MSG, which was the last set before the rotation happened. And then, before Arena became standard. It's actually what I think most people think was the reason that Arena became standard, was they realized they had to rotate MSG out at some point. And then there is Nax, which is the first expansion, and it is a very, very small expansion, but it has a number of old Arena favorites or boogeymen, depending on how you want to look at it, as well as for constructed. It was probably the set with the cards. The cards in the set were already designed before they released Hearthstone. It just took them a while to package them into an adventure and actually release them. And they are pretty basic universal cards, which make them interesting and good Arena cards. So why don't we? And I know people like some of our listeners literally have not played in these metas, right? Like I don't know what percentage of Lightforge podcast listeners have played Nax. I honestly don't, but I imagine it's less than half at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't even know what percentage of people have played Witchwood. I mean, okay, Witchwood is in the arena right now, so you played it. But let's go back one further. MSG. I don't know how many have done MSG. Oh, and I forgot Old Gods. Old Gods is also in there. So I don't know how many people have even touched MSG and Old Gods, much less Nax. So why don't we go over some of, like, just take a trip down memory lane, right? What's coming back? What's coming back, Merps?
All right. What do you want to start off?
Let's start off with let's start off building with what's remaining, right? Like, what are the big players in Witchwood? Because instead of thinking about what's leaving the arena, everything's leaving the arena. Like, what are Ungoro's leaving the arena? Knights of the Frozen Throne's leaving the arena. Cabals and Catacombs is leaving the arena. Boomsday is leaving the arena. Rastakhan, this last set we're currently in, that's leaving the arena. We don't know if there's an offering bonus or not to the new expansion, but we'll get into that later. I have like so much beef with how they're like doing this. A lot of it isn't really beef; it's really just like questions that I don't think they're going to answer correctly. But whatever. I don't think we have time for all that. So let's talk about Witchwood first. What is the only thing that is going to remain from our current meta?
Yeah, so for Witchwood, which is the only set that you currently see and will remain, you still have your strong 3-drops, right? In Pixie, Henchclan Thug, Tangle for Mystic. So you have those. You're still going to have Furious Etten, a staple of the meta right now. You're going to have your Phantom Militias and Witchwood Grizzlies. So you have a lot of taunts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You definitely have a lot of taunts. And this is kind of the cards that are very typical of sets these days as well. You have your Nightmare Amalgams, Mossy Horrors. So all of these like weird cards that are very polarized, and then these strong 3-drops. Like they don't want the game to restart on turn 1, turn 2. They just want it to start on turn 3. And then as for classes, it's a lot of Echo. It's a lot of
all the Echo cards stuff. Are there.
Yeah, it's a lot of removal stuff as well.
What kind of removals? Which removals are staying?
All right. Well, let's go class by class.
Okay.
Druids have like nothing.
I was about to say you could probably start with non-druids.
Hunters, you still have Mastiff and you have Skitter and Wing Blast, right?
Nice.
They actually got a number of removals during this expansion.
Yeah, so a hard removal, a medium removal, and a multi-removal.
Mages still have Cinderstorm, but more importantly, it's not a removal, but they keep Book of Specters, which is like a really mage-defining card these days.
Yeah.
Paladins keep Sound the Bells and Silver Sword and Ghostly Charger, which I think, if you just had these 3 cards in like a Paladin deck, you're going to do pretty well, right? These are backbones. Priests don't really keep that much sort of class-defining cards, but they do have Squashling, Holy Water, and Matriarch, stuff that just helps them with the game plan. Rogues still have Cheap Shot and Blink Fox and Pickpocket, so they have a lot of removal.
So keep in mind, any card we're not mentioning right now that's not in Classic and Basic, they're no longer in the arena in a month. So these are, like, the cards Merps are mentioning are the only cards in this meta that you will see again in the next meta.
Right. I'm naming sort of like the greatest hits. Yeah. So I'm not going to mention like, hey, Rebuke was also in there as
That's
well.
Not a removal. I don't know what Rebuke is.
No, and I'm also trying to mention sort of like
Yeah, the
decent
other like really
cards, right?
good cards. Yeah.
Right. So for Shaman, this was not the best set for them. They still have Earthen Might and they still have Blazing Invocation, but other than that, oh boy, they have Ghostlight Angler. It's not great. It was also not a great set for Warlock as well, in terms of they have Duskbat and then they have Dark Possession. That's a lot of nothingness.
Yeah.
Curse of Weakness, but you almost never see that card either. Warriors should be pretty happy that they kept this set. I know, Warpath. This is the Warpath set. They still have Warpath. They still have Woodcutter's Axe to go with the Rush minions, right?
Nice.
So they keep their Rush minions and they get Woodcutter's Axe. So overall,
when did Rush become a thing? Like, is there Rush in MSG? There's no Rush in MSG.
No. Rush became a thing in Witchwood.
In Witchwood, right? Yeah, okay.
Right.
So they only have Witchwood Rush minions. They don't have any Rush minions that came after Witchwood.
I don't know, but
they don't because the other sets after Witchwood are no longer in the arena. That's why they don't have the other sets after.
Oh
Witchwood.
yeah. Oh, that's what you mean. No. Yeah. So they
we all have to adjust to this new way of thinking.
Well, no. I thought you meant right now. Like.
Oh yeah. No. I mean, like, but they've been releasing Rush sets every single set, like since Witchwood.
Sure. But they keep Militia Commander, they keep the Red Band Wasp, and they keep Rabid Worgen as well.
Cool. Okay. So that's everything that exists right now. So now we're going to talk about quote-unquote new things, which are old things, which to the extent you are not familiar with them because you've been playing only in the last year, you will become familiar with them. So let's start way back. Back in you just want to do Nax. Okay, let's do Nax. Let's start with Nax. It's a tiny set. I actually wanted to start with Old Gods. I feel like it's more contained, but okay, let's start with Nax.
It is the smallest.
It is the smallest set. It's only like 30 cards or something. It's really small. But it has a lot of impactful cards. A lot of neutral cards in Nax were actually pretty good, especially for their time. Remember that it was Ungoro that raised the bar for neutral cards. So Ungoro, Frozen Thrones, and Kobolds and Catacombs were the three sets that had a ton of really good neutral cards. And since then, the really good neutral cards have really been in control for Blizzard. So these cards may have something to say about that. Haunted Creeper, 2 mana, 1/2, Death Rattle, summon 2 1/1 Spectral Spiders. That was an arena mainstay, one of the best 2-drops in arena I think ever created. And
it's also a beast.
It's also a beast on top of that. The Death Rattled spiders are not beasts, but the main
Can
body.
Can you imagine? That would be disgusting.
Yeah, so that's going to be back, and that's going to be interesting. Like Merps was saying, right? Your 2-drops are going to get a boost whenever you take these old sets out to play. Mad Scientist, which was a real problem in Constructed, and less of a problem in Arena, but still, what the hell? It's 2 mana, 2/2. Death Rattle, put a secret from your deck into the board. Recruit a secret.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Only sacrificing a single stat point.
Yeah, that's just not fair for your mages and your hunters. Probably fair for your paladins, but not for your mages and hunters, which have the good secrets. So
yeah, I'm gonna call it right now. Mad Scientist is going to be rage inducing. This is the one that everyone is going to complain about. I remember back then, pre-bucketing, sort of standard arena, it got to a point where people were already pretty kind of PO'd about Mad Scientist. Just this is a dumb card. The swings are way too big.
It's a poorly designed card.
It's a poorly designed card.
And you're going to see a theme of these old sets where there's just a lot of poorly designed card. Because guess what? Blizzard was figuring out how to design these cards. And unlike the poorly designed cards that are in Classic and Basic, these don't get nerfed because they got rotated out. They don't get Hall of Famed because they're rotated out. So Standard, Constructed, the competitive game mode that Blizzard actually cares about, is going to be more balanced. But you know whoever the balance is not really going to be all there? Wild and Arena. This is where Arena is now. Arena used to be with Standard. which means it used to be with the balance. Not perfect, of course. They're going to balance for constructed, not for arena, but still, overall, it's going to get a lot of the side benefits, right, from being in standard. Now, arena is essentially in a weird version of wild, but it's definitely not going to be in a balanced version of wild. It's going to be with the same issues that wild is going to have. And Mad Scientist is going to exist. Okay, Zombie Chow.
Yeah.
That's
Zombie
that's
Chow. 1 mana, 2/3. Death Rattle, restore 5 health to the enemy hero. This is a card that I remember when we were doing tier lists by hand. Eventually, it made it to almost the very top of the tier list.
Yeah.
It got to a point where it was so good. I remember
but that
this
was also because of GVG. That wasn't just because of Zombie Chow. It's because the whole meta swung in a way that made it insane.
Yes.
So, I think right now it's a balanced card. That's a weird thing to say.
I think right now it is. But I agree. I don't think it is going to be the world beater it was before. I remember at its worst, right? Essentially, like right after Nax and during GVG, you play Zombie Chow 1, you win. That's it. Crit made videos about it. Hafu like basically wanted to stop playing Arena for a while because it was. I mean, her statement was just, whoever played Zombie Chow 1 won the game. And it was true. It was not an exaggeration. That was the game back then. You play Zombie Chow 1 and you win. So, and I remember my hunters back then, even then I liked hunters. My hunters back then, there was a point in which I think you asked me, it's like, wait, how many Zombie Chows did you draft? I'm like, I would draft 2. You're just like, what? And it was because it's so powerful on turn 1 that I would take a dead draw later on just to have the advantage of having a Zombie Chow.
Back then I was really underrating Zombie Chow. I was very resistant to Zombie Chow for like a number of months before I realized I was wrong.
For those of you who only know hater Merps now, who hates on cards, this was one of the only cards back then that I was just like, nope, this is a world beater right here. Yeah.
Okay. Sludge Belcher, which was really more of a problem for constructed than arena. 5 mana, 3/5 taunt. Death Rattle, summon a 1/2 slime with taunt. It's a double taunt in one body. It's going to be fine now. I don't think it's going to be a terribly amazing card in the meta, but it's cool to have it back. When it comes to the class cards, there's actually not a lot of interesting class cards. The class cards were kind of weird. Web Spinner's coming back. It's 1 mana, 1/1 Death Rattle. Add a random beast card to your hand. More for funsies than anything else.
It's going to be good. I'm going to love it.
The more problematic cards are Avenge. Paladin Secret. One of the best Paladin Secrets ever created. 1 mana secret. When one of your minion dies, give a random friendly minion 3/2. That means if you're removing the Paladin minions, which you need to because they're Paladins, they just got 5 stats for 1 mana, as long as they have 2 bodies on the board. It's like, it was problematic back then. I don't know how many Summer Snowball tools are actually going to be available with all these sets. I think they may actually be under control.
They still have Silver Sword.
Oh, that's right. They still have Silver Sword. But that's like late game. Who really cares about Silver Sword?
They when it comes to also still have Sound the Bells.
But... Oh, crap. They have Sound the Bells. All right. So much. Because I'm in my head, I'm like, well, you know, the Stegodon's leaving. So that's solving a lot of things. Dino Size is leaving. But yeah, they still have Sound the Bells. Okay. Game over. That's Avenge. Dark Cultist is coming back, which I'm just going to jump ahead right now to MSG.
All right.
Because Dark Cultist is a 3 mana, 3/4. Death Rattle, give a random friendly minion plus 3 health. Cabal Talon Priest is a 3 mana, 3/4. Battle Cry, give a random friendly minion plus 3 health, right?
Priests get both at once.
Priests are going to have both of these at once. This is going to be sick board priests. Priests are actually getting a whole lot of stuff, but
priests are getting a whole lot of stuff because priests are one of the winners in terms of the class card, the one class card that they get in Nax, because it was not a big set. But MSG, so yeah, we should move there. MSG was essentially priests getting a bounty.
Yeah.
Every single card that they got was amazing.
We'll get there. Let's finish up Nax.
There's more?
There's more. You don't remember this card called Void Caller? Because you blocked it out of your memory because it was freaking silly. The 4 mana 3/4 demon death rattle. Put a random demon from your hand into the battlefield. Just put it out there. Doesn't matter what size it is.
Yeah, but like we'd have to see what demons are left.
Do you want to try a Cabal Trafficker or an Abyssal Enforcer? Bringing MSG back into this. Whenever we start talking about things being unbalanced,
Cabal
MSG
Trafficker is not a demon.
Oh, sorry, Cabal Trafficker is not a demon. That's right, I forgot. She looks
you
like
have
a
Cruel
demon.
the Unshackled, but that's unlegendary.
Yeah, I mean, you still have your Dread Infernos, right? Like, there's
You
still
do.
stuff. But we'll see. Yeah, okay. I take that back. I haven't done an analysis of Voidcaller in terms of how many big demons there may be, because the Doomguard's already out. So I don't know. Maybe Voidcaller's not that bad. Death Spite was the ever overpowered warrior weapon, but warriors have a lot of overpowered weapons, so I don't really care that much. 4 mana, 4/2, Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all minions. So, not Battle Cry, just Death Rattle. So the first hit is 4 damage, the second hit is 5 damage, and deals 1 damage to everything else. So that's Nax. I think we gotta go like a little faster. I'm just gonna run through really quickly Old Gods, which was a pretty unremarkable set. It was very balanced. I liked it a lot. It was extremely boring. The only thing I didn't like it was that everything was a tentacle and everything was purple. It was just purple tentacles everywhere because that was the thing.
Purple tentacles everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
This is the worst visuals. Anyway, in the neutrals, there weren't really anything like groundbreaking. It was a lot of very normal stuff. Bog Creepers, you're like, 6/8 taunt for 7 mana. That was pretty powerful, especially for the time. Nowadays, it's just going to be like a nice throwback to get a big taunt because a lot of the other big taunts are leaving. I mean, all the other big taunts are leaving from neutral. And Corrupted Seer is going to come back and replace Primordial Drake. So now for 6 mana, you get to deal 2 damage to the whole entire board. But the body's only a 2/3. So this was never as powerful of a card as Primordial Drake, but it does come out 2 turns earlier, which means it was a more poorly designed card than Primordial Drake. Questionable. Primordial Drake has its own design issues. But still, it's going to be back. It's going to be something to watch out for.
I'd also like to give a shout out to Nerubian Prophet, which was powerful and really annoying because you can't make reads on it, and it's just a lot of tempo randomly.
Yeah. Nerubian Prophet is 6 mana 4/4. Every turn it's in your hand, it goes down by 1 mana. So it's a 3 mana 4/4 if you like had it in the beginning. But usually, like, it depends on how long the game goes, right? It could come out for free at some point. I don't think it's going to be that powerful right now. But
no, it's just really annoying in terms of turn planning.
Yeah. Right? The forbidden cards are all in this set. So the forbidden cards, if you don't remember, are like 0 mana cards that the more mana, it uses up the remaining of your mana, and for each mana it does something. So it would be like Druid has one that's like, you get a 5/5 for 5, or a 6/6 for 6, or a 7/7 for 7. However much mana is remaining. Mage has got one Forbidden Flame that dealt damage, right? And that kind of stuff. That's going to be back. In terms of the really good cards, there were quite a few for classes. But comparing this set to like other sets, this is like the balance set. You have Mark of Yasharaj for Druids, which is kind of an insane card. It's Beast Druids is going to make a comeback because of this card. 2 mana, +2/+2, and if you're buffing a beast, you get a card. So should remind you of a certain elemental card for Shaman, and how busted that card is. And remember, that card for Shaman that's +2/+2, add an elemental to your hand. If your card is an element, if the card you're buffing is an elemental, that card was super underbucketed because people just would not pick it when they don't have an elemental deck. Mark of Yasharaj is going to be the same. So this is guaranteed to be an underbucketed card. Twilight Flamecaller in Mage. I know you hated this card. It's 3 mana, 2/2, deal 1 damage to everything.
I hate it.
I mean, to all your opponent's stuff, not to everything. Yeah, it's a very powerful card. It's going to be at the top of the current scale. I think it's like on the line between fair and unfair. So I had less of an issue with it. Faceless Summoner, which brings up an interesting point, because some of these cards are banned because they banned a bunch of cards in Arena at one point for balance reasons. I don't know if it's making a comeback or not. Faceless Summoner is your 6 mana 5/5 mage card that summoned like a random like 3-drop or something.
Yep, random 3-drop.
And it made no sense that it was a mage or what it did, and it was just like a what kind of card. But it may or may not be back. If it's still banned, then it's not going to be back. If it's not banned, then it's a pretty powerful card. Mages also get Cabalist Tome for a card draw, 5 mana, add 3 random mage cards into your hand. You get, moving on to Paladin. Paladin has Selfless Hero, 2/1, 1 mana card, which on Death Rattle gives the Divine Shield to a friendly minion. So if you don't have a friendly minion, it sucks. If you do, it's insanely powerful. Terribly designed card. Steward of Darkshire, 3 mana, 3/3. Whenever you summon the minion with 1 attack, or 1 health, one or the other, it gets Divine Shield. Again, just like super abusable. Rogues get Shadow Strike, 3 mana, deal 5 damage. If it's undamaged, I think. Has to be an undamaged minion.
Has to be undamaged.
So that's an interesting removal. Because keep in mind, no other removals besides basic and classic cards. These are all the removals you get. So the amount of removals are actually fairly limited outside of MSG, which again is the problem and we'll get into. Moving on, Shaman is going to get a crap ton of stuff because this was the set that had evolution as a theme. So you get Evolve, 1 mana, evolve all your minions to something that costs 1 mana more randomly. Master of Evolution, which just evolves a random friendly minion. Thing from Below, which is interesting. The amount of totems that you have created reduces its mana cost. It's a 6 mana 5/5 taunt. So you have to like totem once at some point, and it's fine. And if you totem more, this card is game swinging. You also get Flame Wreath Faceless, which is a 4 mana 7/7 that overloads for like 2, right?
Yeah, 2.
It's
4 mana 7/7.
Super powerful. And Eternal Sentinel, which is 2 mana 3/2 that also unlocks all of your locked crystals from Overload for no good reason. Just an unfair card. And especially now with buckets, right? Because if you're thinking about these cards, I know a lot of you are thinking about these cards, and you're like, oh, it was like this and that, it was like this and that. Remember that your decks are like 5 times more synergized than they used to be because of buckets. So a lot of these cards that were less problematic before, they're going to get their day in the sun. Okay. Here's the problematic card for Warlock. Darkshire Councilmen. This was one of the overpowered cards they should have nerfed that they just never ended up nerfing. It's 3 mana 1/5. Whenever you summon a creature, summon, and whenever, anytime, it gets +1 attack. It's stupid, silly. It was along the lines of Frothing Berserker, which, to be fair, Frothing Berserker is still alive and well and unnerfed in like standard. So maybe Blizzard just doesn't consider this kind of stuff a problem. You also have Doom, which is 10 mana, destroy everything, draw a card for each thing you destroy. That was always a good card. And it's going to remain a good card. Ravaging Ghoul and N'Zoth's First Mate for Warrior. Ravaging Ghoul's 3 mana.
This is a good set for Warriors.
Super good set for Warrior.
This is when they started paying attention to Warriors.
Yep. 3 mana 3/3, deal 1 damage to everything. So really good. N'Zoth's First Mate is a 1 mana 1/1 that gives you a 1/3 weapon. I don't know what to say about that. I think they were like purposefully just like making better warrior cards for early game.
And then Pirate Warriors just plagued the ladder for the longest time, where N'Zoth's First Mate turn 1 into patches and then just snowball.
The fact that they never nerfed N'Zoth's First Mate still like confuses me. It was clearly way better than other 1-drops. Why?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was and is ridiculously good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's back. So Warriors, although they do have Warpath, they also have Ravaging Ghoul now for some control. And they have N'Zoth's First Mate if they want to go fast. So Warriors still very powerful. Do you want to talk about the set that we have basically talked about all the rest just to get to? It is MSG. This is the problem child of the Arena history. What I consider the least balanced set ever released. I think what most people consider the least balanced set ever released for the Arena.
I think definitely. And it created Priest Stone for the Arena. And
don't forget Warlock Stone.
Bad. It created both. So when Priests and Warlocks are at the top of the meta, it is not a good thing. All right, let's go through some the neutral cards.
The neutral
first.
cards here, I'm going to preface this, they're amazing. This set
yeah,
has one of the best designed neutral card sets for Arena.
So good.
Like, I'll be honest, in all of MSG, I know you were really, really down in the MSG meta, but I was really happy because as long as I was not facing Priest or Warlock, it was such a good game. But then I would face Priest or Warlock and it would be terrible, but still, right? There were still a lot of good games in there. So this polarizing set is back.
So let's go through some of the neutral cards that I know you like, which are, for example, Mistress of Mixtures, 1 mana 2/2. Death Rattle, restore 4 health to each hero. Blowgill Sniper, which is just cheaty ankle biter, except
without the healing.
Without the healing, right?
So more balance.
Still, very very playable. Friendly Bartender, 2 mana 2/3, restores 1 health to your hero at the end of your turn.
I remember we put this guy so high on the tier list that every single person was like, "You're wrong," and then like by the end of the meta, everyone was like, "Okay, you're right." Like I lose to this guy enough times and it saves me enough time.
Just starting to recognize that healing face was actually okay because we swung so hard to a point where like health does not matter at all. To now when it's like, wait, health is actually pretty important.
I'm actually like trying to. Well, after the bucket system, everything changed, right? So that health became much more important. Yeah. But even back then, like Friendly Bartender was like the healing card.
Hired Gun. 3 mana 4/3 with taunt. This is, a meta-defining card.
This is the great time. I remember this card for one reason. Besides the meta-definingness of it, I remember before it even came out for one reason, which is that this was the card that for some reason the Hearth Arena guys who were making a tier list put lower than Injured Blademaster, which is a neutral 4 mana, 3 mana 4/3. This one has taunt. That one doesn't. And they just took a position on it before the card came out. Very strong position. They explained it. They're like, we think this card is better without a taunt because it only has 3 health. You want to hide it behind stuff. And they went with it. And it was lower rated than Injured Blademaster. And they kept it lower rated than Injured Blademaster. I think, I don't know if they eventually changed it, but at least for the rest of the meta, they never moved it. Even as it became very, very apparent that the taunt, what do you know, is somewhat useful at least.
Taunt is
better than
useful.
No taunt for vanilla minions. What did you know? All right. That was a throwback moment. That's why I remember that card the most.
All right. So, and on 4, we have 2 of my favorite 4 drops of all time. I'm not saying that they're like the best or the most balanced or whatever, but they are 2 of my favorites. Daring Reporter, which is a 4 mana 3/3, and whenever your opponent draws a card, gain +1/+1. It was just a fun card.
Mm-hmm.
I did not love the snowball mechanics of it, especially when I was on the other end, but it was a fun card. And now to actually one of my favorite cards of all time, Kooky Chemist.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring that up. Now we're going to have... Crazed Alchemist ain't going anywhere because that's in Classic set. So now we're going to have 2 flippy cards. Kooky Chemist, 4 mana 4/4. It's Crazed Alchemist, but bigger.
Yeah. And I remember we were having a discussion and you were just like, wait, as of today, do you take Kooky Chemist or Dark Iron Dwarf? I'm like, Kooky Chemist every time. Yeah. And you're just like, I don't think so. And you had me track, with all my uses of Kooky Chemist, what was the result? And at the end, you were just like, okay, I kind of see this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Now I'm fully on board with this, especially because now when things got even weirder. But,
right. Look at Witchwood.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you beat a Witchwood Grizzly? You flip it. You flip it to make it only have 3 health, right? So yeah. With all the other expansions that are coming out, Kooky Chemist will only get better and better and better. So this is definitely better now. But it was one of my...
If you track our Crazed Alchemist score, it's funny how it used to be a not so good card, and now it's take this over a regular 2-drop. Duh.
Yep. And then of course on 6 we have Big Time Racketeer.
Don't go to 6. What? How are you skipping 5s? Spike.
I'm skipping 5s.
Hog Rider.
No. This is just for the comment.
You're not even on rares yet. We don't care right now. We don't differentiate anymore. You're thinking.
You don't differentiate. Okay, well that's fine. Spiked Hog Rider and Bomb Squad.
Yeah.
These are going to be huge. Which went to your point of the 5 damage. Oh, okay, we're 2 in depth now. 2 in depth. Oh, my bad.
No, it's true.
But
you can deal 5 damage now in neutral, right?
yeah,
You may be thinking, what do you mean? We've always had this card that can like deal like 6 damage in neutral for 4 mana. Why does this 5 mana one matter? Well, we didn't used to have that card, so 5 mana used to matter. But now, why am I blanking on the name of this card? Swift Messenger. Swift Messenger, by the way, is still going to be in the meta. That's a Witchwood card, I think. Am I right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So the impact of Bomb Squad here is not as impactful as it was when it first came out. But just know that more of your stuff is going to get blown up in neutral. But yeah, Spike Hogrider I think deserves special mention because that was the anti-taunt card. Like, you keep wondering how you get through taunts now, especially when taunts get heavy in a particular meta. And Old Gods had a bunch of taunts. Witchwood has a bunch of taunts. So we're still going to be in a decently taunty meta. Nax has a really good taunt. So Spike Hogrider is going to eat up some Sludge Belchers now. Just like it was designed to.
No Tar Creeper.
No Tar Creeper, yeah.
And I would take Sludge Belcher being in the meta over Tar Creeper any day. Like, am I more afraid as an aggro deck of Tar Creeper or Sludge Belcher? Definitely.
Wait. You're saying the neutral cards in Ungoro were more poorly designed than the neutral cards before Ungoro?
Ungoro really was just that was eye-opening in terms of what I thought they would ever do with neutral cards. Yeah, that was when neutrals really just took center stage. And,
I feel like Ben Brode has something to do with that, where he's just like, just send me out, guys. Just send me out in epic fashion. Ungoro's going to be the last set that I talk about. I want to be excited. I want to like do some like crazy
I mean, it's
stuff.
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It's dinosaurs. It's and they didn't even stop with dinosaurs. There's the tar things as well, right? It's like not just dinosaurs. We have these big tar taunt things.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, okay, so those are a lot of the neutrals, and we can now let's talk about classes. So if you guys remember, this was the expansion in which they grouped 3 classes together, right? So we had the Jade classes, we had the Grimy Goons, and we had the Cabal classes as well. So for Druid, I remember trying to make Jade Druid work for so many failed
It doesn't work, and it still won't work, even though you have buckets now, and even though it just still won't work. No. Let's explain Jade for a second. Jade is basically like you summon a 1/1 Jade, and the game remembers that you summon a Jade and gives you a counter. And the next time you summon a Jade, it's 2/2, and it's 3/3 after that, and it's 4/4 after that. And you have all these cards that summon Jades. And as part of the tri-class, each of the every class has one like gang member that that they all share. And so all the Grimy Goons get a 2 mana. All the Grimy Goons get a 3 mana 2/4 that gives a random like card in their hand +1/+1. All the potion-y people, which is Mage, Warlock, and Priest, get a 4 mana 3/3 that adds a random potion into your hand. Potions are like a special set of cards that have the word potion in them from this set. And they're really good. And then the Jade one was a 4 mana like 2/3 or something, right? Like it was like a really bad one, and it summoned a Jade. So it was a 2/3 with a 1/1 if it's the only Jade you played so far for 4 mana. So it's pretty terrible. But if you had already played a Jade before, then it's a 4 mana for a 2/3 with a 2/2, and that's less terrible, etc., etc.
Yep.
Okay, and before we get to that, I also want to mention the tri-class discover cards. Every single class gets a card that allows them to discover a random minion. Or is it a random card? I think it's a random card.
It's a random card.
It's a random card from one of their like sister classes. So if you're like a warrior and you use it, you get like a warrior selection, you get a paladin selection, and a hunter selection. And these are all good cards in the arena. Like they are above average cards in your deck. And what it basically does is makes you completely unable to get a read on your opponent. Because at some point they'll play that card and then they can have any card. And your whole game plan goes out the window.
I remember like you'd have to play around all this. So now whenever you're facing a paladin or a warrior, you'd also have to be like, okay, have to play around Grievous Bite or Crushing Walls as well,
Yep.
right? Or Explosive. Whenever you're facing a Paladin, you have to think, it's like, ooh, maybe Warpath? Is that what he's been holding on for? And then you're just going to go crazy thinking about all this stuff. So you can't really play around it.
And that's one of the reasons why I liked MSG. Like, I know everyone hated these cards, but for me, it was coming at the end of a meta. It was right before they were going to rotate. So it had a decent-sized card pool. And it was just like, well, now with the tri-class cards in, just don't play around anything. It's completely pointless to play around anything. And we're going to be there again. I think the card pool is going to be a little lower, but with the tri-class Discover cards, there's going to be so many times when you just don't play around stuff. But again, this is all stuff that lowers skill. This is just lowering skill in a way I don't mind as much, but other people do mind. And I think they may be right and I may be wrong on this.
All right, so let's go through the classes. The one remarkable card with Druid is Mark of the Lotus. Mm-hmm. If you thought Power of the Wild was great, I mean, Mark of the Lotus was, like a lot more polarized. You can't have the option to summon that raptor, but man, for half the cost, you can give all of your minions +1/+1.
1 mana, +1/+1 to everything. So just for like kicks, because we were designing cards for Gods Unchained, I was like, I wonder what some card like Mark of the Lotus would be, like fairly like mana value, right? And the answer was like, I think like 4. Like to make it an average card, to make it like a Yeti size. Like to make it like as valuable as a Yeti. And it's a 1 mana card here.
Yeah.
Just saying. Like, yeah, sure, it's a class card, it's a spell, it should be a little more powerful than a Yeti. But to make it a Yeti, to make it valuable like that, it should be. And that's also why Power of the Wild is overpowered, right? Because for 2 mana, you get to do that and you get to have a 2-drop.
Yeah. And also, we're talking about different games here. But
it's applicable enough. It's a very similar game in terms of the core structure.
Yeah, but I don't think you would actually raise
no, because you wouldn't want to bring anything to a Yeti level in Hearthstone, right? Like, Yeti's not playable and constructed, so you would make it 3 mana at worst.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to Hunter. And Hunter actually, like, we haven't really been keeping an eye on Hunter during all of this, but Hunters are getting some pretty good tools for all of these. So for this set, they get Alley Cat, Trog Beast Rager. So Alley Cat is a 1 mana 1/1 that also summons a cuter 1/1. Trog Beast Rager is a 2 mana 3/2 that gives a random beast in your hand +1/+1. You also get Piranha Launcher, a 5 mana 2/4 where after your hero attacks, you summon a 1/1 Piranha. This was one in which we rated very highly. We got a lot of flack for it, I remember.
Yeah,
and it turned out to be pretty good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are some of the greatest hits with the the Hunter class. And then we move on to Mage. And the big one here is definitely Volcanic Potion.
So all the potions are going to make you hate this game if you never played against them before. Volcanic Potion is a 3 mana, deal 2 damage to everything. Yep. Like, yeah, okay, fine. It follows the normal pattern of these kinds of cards that deal like damage to everything. But you take that, especially, what did we say before that Mage had? Twilight Flamecaller, which was 3 mana, deal 1 damage to all your opponent's stuff, and have a 2/2 summon. Like, Mage is going to get a whole bunch of early-ish kind of, like, remove the whole board things. It's going to be interesting for Mage. I think overall, like, Mage, Priest, and Warlock are going to be the 3 most interesting classes.
Yeah, definitely. And then further on, Mage didn't get like that much good stuff in MSG. Paladins got all of their hand buff stuff in MSG. So they have Smuggler's Run, which is a 1 mana spell. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. As well as Grime Street Outfitter, which is a 2 mana 1/1 battle cry. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. So they can really just start off the game buffing everything in their hand. And further buffing with Grime Street Enforcer, which is a 5 mana 4/4 at the end of your turn. Give all minions in your hand.
So you're guaranteed to get 1 trigger of it. It's at the end of your turn.
Yeah. And then we also have Grime Street Protector, which is a 7 mana 6/6 taunt that gives adjacent minions Divine Shield. This was like the closer, right?
This is a super unbalanced card. It's not like
Yes.
that much more unbalanced than like, let's say, Argent Protector or something, but still, you shouldn't be making cards like Argent Protector. You should this was really the set that like leaned into Hearthstone's worst card, like worst balanced cards, and was like, we got to compete with those cards to get in anyone's decks. And so here you guys go.
So that's Paladin. Let's move on to Priest and just really talk about the worst offender.
Pour one out for the meta.
Potion of Madness. 1 mana spell. Gain control of an enemy minion with 2 or less attack until end of turn. This was, other than MCT, the most rage-inducing card in the arena until it rotated out. This is by far the most rage-inducing card. And let me tell you, there were a lot of rage-inducing cards. It just ended games. Games with Priest devolved into do they have a Potion of Madness in their starting hand? If so, they just win. Because one of the only ways that you had back then to beat Priest was to out-tempo them in the early game. But Potion of Madness stopped you dead in your tracks.
Yeah. And you'll see why with some of these other cards coming up, that you're not going to beat Priest at their like long game.
So they also got in this set Cabal Talon Priest, which ADWCTA mentioned, a 3-mana 3/4 with Battle Cry, give a friendly minion +3 health. Cabal Songstealer, which was a 5-mana 5/5 Battle Cry, silence a minion. And then Draconid Operative.
Okay, so there's not a lot of dragons anymore in these sets that are coming in. So Draconid Operative is a 5-mana 5/6 that if you have a dragon in your hand, you get to like discover a card or something.
In your opponent's deck. So you get to choose a card that's already been
chosen once. Yeah. So that's super good. But there's not a lot of dragons. So this is going to be one of those, like, it's still good. It's a 5-mana 5/6. You're still going to pick it, right? But it just becomes less % chance of being stupid. And the last card in Priest that's super powerful is Dragonfire Potion. It is 6 mana, deal 5 damage to everything. Yeah, that used to be a card. 2 classes have it. Warlock also has a similar card. But yeah, 5 health, not safe? What? That's not the arena. That's not... It was very bad. There was very few ways to play around it, and you just died when Priest used it. So between Dragonfire Potion and the other stuff that they had, Priests were a very, 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 very good control deck. Now I will say that the meta's not going to be the same as it was back when MSG existed and tortured everyone. The meta is not going to be the same, partly because of all these powerful 3-drops that Witch would continue to have, and that I assume this new set will also have, the new expansion that's coming up. And so that kind of warping of the game is going to make Potion of Madness less annoying. Like, look, we all hate Potion of Madness, but I think it's going to be like 15 to 20% less ridiculously polarizing than it was in the back then meta.
Also, the good thing is we do not have MSG at the same time as Ungoro and Kobolds and Catacombs. So we do not have it at the same time as we have Basilisk and Gastropod. Because
we never
if you
had it at the same time as...
No, I'm not saying you did. I'm saying you should be very happy about the fact that we do not have that. Because that is huge. Because Potion Madness was infuriating even without those. With those, it is just terrible. Because you are forced to draft those cards if they exist. And then if Potion Madness exists along with those, And if we are staying with the schedule and Blizzard keeps on mixing it up, we will enter some meta in the future in which you will have Potion Madness with like Gastropod and Basilisk as well. So
can we just say this, which is that at some point we're gonna get Ungoro back. Like, I thought we were done with Ungoro. I was so happy we were done with Ungoro. And we're going to get it back now at some point this year for 2 months, and then it's going to come back again at some other point this year for another 2 months. That's just the world we live in now. You're never going to be done with Ungoro. You're never going to be done with Frozen Throne, Knights of the Frozen Throne. You're never going to be done with Cabals and Catacombs. These super powered sets, because remember, they pulled back the power level in 2018, and presumably they're keeping to the new power level for standard purposes in this upcoming set. But we're in the arena, just like in Wild, we are never, ever getting rid of the 2017 set. The overpowered neutrals in the 2017 set. Which means any set that has those sets in it, neutral will be dominated by that set that comes in from that 2017 block. Like, okay, I know people are like, oh, let's figure out the new meta and whatever. Sure, but it's like guaranteed to be these like unbalanced metas. Anyway, let's wrap this up. There's 2 Jade classes that do stuff, unlike Druid that we were talking about before, and that's Jade Rogue and Jade Shaman. Jade Rogue has Jade Shuriken and Jade Swarmer. Jade Shuriken is deal 2 damage, combo, summon a Jade, and it's only 2 mana, so it's just like really good, even if you don't have other Jades. And if you do have other Jades, it's like really, really, really good. Jade Swarmer is 2 mana, 1/1, Death Rattle, summon a Jade, and has stealth, I think. So it's more balanced, but still playable. Jade Shaman goes even better. It has Jade Lightning, which is 4 mana, deal 4 damage, summon a Jade. Again, just good by itself and gets amazing. And it has Jade Claws, which is, I think, 2 mana, 2/2 weapon, which again, just good right by itself. And then it also summons a Jade. And it overloads 1 or something. Does it overload 1 even?
Huh? Jade Claws? Yeah.
Yeah, it overloads 1.
But that would be insane if it did.
It's insane anyway. That's all I remember. I'm just like, this is not a balanced card. Jade Chieftain is the 3rd Jade card for Shaman. It is like, I'm going to get this wrong, but I want to say a 6 mana 4/4 that summons a Jade. And the Jade has taunt.
No, Jade Chieftain is a 7 mana 5/5.
Oh. Okay, so close enough. 7 mana 5/5, it summons a Jade, and the Jade itself has taunt, not the 5/5.
Yep.
So that's not a good card. But if you're building a Jade deck, it becomes a good card. Because remember, Jades are just like remembered how many Jades you've played. So just build. You don't need to keep them alive on the board. You don't need to have them in your hand when stuff happens. Nothing. And finally, we get to Warlock. God, who was it? Was it like 12 wins? I think it was 12 wins who did this. Who got like some insane win rate on the leaderboard by abusing Warlock for that month.
Yeah, well, he played Hunters to counteract.
Oh, right. Sorry. Wait, really?
Yes.
Okay, but he also played a lot of Warlocks as well, right?
He played Warlocks, but he used Hunter because of the prevalence of Warlocks.
Okay, yeah. It was pretty crazy, and that's how prevalent Warlocks were. And Warlocks were prevalent because of the following cards, almost exclusively because of the following cards. It is 1, Blast Crystal Potion, which is 4 mana hard removal that kills one of your own mana crystals, but it stops mattering like towards the later game. Abyssal Enforcer, which was so much of a problem, Blizzard had to lower its offering rate by 50%. In the arena specifically. I don't know if that's still applicable or not. I imagine not. It is a 7 mana 6/6 that deals 3 damage to everything. So it's like a 1 mana Hellfire attached to a 6/6 body. Like, people will play that card aggressively. That's how good it was. It was great defensively, but it's also aggressive because what happens if after they clear your board, you don't do anything? Well, then you've just taken 9 damage. Like, that's a lot. On top of that, there's Fellfire Potion, which is the 6 mana deal 5 damage to everything card. This one, unlike the Priest one, also damages heroes. So, again, pushing for a little, like, split the board aggression here. And finally, Cabal Trafficker, which is a 6 mana 6/6, that at the end of the turn, you add a random demon to your hand. It could have been a battle cry, add a random demon to your hand, and it would have been really good. Instead, they made it end of turn, so if you don't kill this thing, it's just going to keep giving demons to your opponent, or if you use it to you. That's a pretty compelling package for Warlock in this set.
All right. this was not great for warriors.
Yeah, no.
This is the set with Public Defender.
Yeah.
But they get Grimy Gadgeteer, which is pretty good. 4 mana, 4/3. End of your turn, give a random minion in your hand +2/+2. That's pretty much it. Sleep with the Fishes is actually quite good. 2 mana, deal 3 damage to all damaged minions. That could be
like all pretty balanced cards, right?
They're all
like
pretty
overall.
balanced cards.
Like,
but
normal.
At this point, like warriors needed more than just pretty balanced.
Yeah. So we just ran through all the relevant cards that are going to be in the game, besides like neutral, like foundational cards, and we ran through even most of those. So that's your new meta, guys. We'll dig deep and actually analyze it in the next Lightforge. But for now, we just wanted to run through the cards, go through a bit of a nostalgia, walk in the past of all these great and not so great Hearthstone cards that had existed before and are now going to be back in our lives in a big way. So yeah, this podcast has gone on long enough. I'm not going to talk about my even further and deeper problems with this whole new set rotation system, but I'll leave you with one, we'll say prediction, but really just kind of like a guarantee. The first 2 months, I'll go one better. The first 3 months after the next release in the expansion is just all going to be a clusterfuck. Guaranteed, 100%. And we're all going to be playing the arena, or at least the arena players are going to.
What does that mean? What do you mean by clusterfuck?
I mean, it's going to be an event. You know how, like, remember when they added, like, 30 unbalanced cards into the meta in June? For, like, 3 weeks? Remember that?
Okay.
It was, like, the time event. It's going to be like that for 3 months, at least.
Dreamers.
Bare minimum, 3 months. They're not going to get the bucketing right. They're not going to get the new cards right. They're not going to be able to balance the two. And then when they finally achieve some semblance of balance, working their asses off, they're going to rotate everything, and they have to do it all over again for at least 1 more month. So I think if Blizzard is very on top of their game, and they do much better than I expect, we will have 3 months of an event-like meta. Which is to say, I'm going to be bored of it after 2 weeks. I'm really going to be bored of it after 1 week, but with the new expansion, probably 2-3 weeks can keep my attention. And I'm still going to have to play it. And we'll do fine in it. We did fine in the event metas. We always do fine in event metas and new metas. Like people said, right? Good players know how to adapt to a new meta. Even if it's mostly memorization and, figuring stuff out and whatever. Stuff that happens outside of the game itself. It is a skill, and that meta skill is something we're good at. So we'll do that. Definitely great change for the Lightforge. Now we have much more to talk about. We're not even going to be able to keep up now. I kind of like the little lull periods we get for like 2-3 weeks towards the end of every expansion where we get to just like talk about whatever. Like, how does Curvestone work? We're not going to get that anymore. Metas are going to be coming too fast. We'll always be analyzing and delving into metas now. But yeah. And I don't know. I think people I don't know if they don't care or they don't realize. Like, this is not going to be a fun game in May. It's really not going to be a fun game in June. It's not going to be a fun game in July. For people who want to take Arena seriously, it's just not going to be fun. And that's coming because it's going to be fun for someone else, presumably, assuming Blizzard's right, and I think they may be. And this isn't a short-term thing. This is a long-term vision from Blizzard, and steps are going to keep going in that direction. And they're the developers, right? They make the rules, we follow them. So it's not much we can really do about it, besides kind of just lay down. And it's not like they haven't been consistent with it either.
Okay, now you're literally just rambling. So I'm going to cut you off right there. Thank you for listening in to our thoughts and analysis this week. We will actually go into deep analysis next week in terms of looking at, okay, so what is the universe that we are operating in? And I'm sure ADWCTA will pontificate a little bit more. Hopefully not as much as he did this week. But that's it for us. Take it away.
It's a very sad week.
This is Merps. Arena. Goodbye. See you guys next week.
Just a very sad week.